Malka is one of my good friends who is Jewish Mormon. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself real quick.
Hi, everybody. I'm Malka. I'm Gabby's Jewish Mormon friend. I'm from California, and I just moved to Utah back in 2020.
Awesome. So good. Okay, so you're gonna have to remind me. Your parents are the ones who converted to Mormonism, right?
Yeah. When I was 3.5, my parents joined the church. But before that, my mom actually saw a commercial on TV saying that she would get a free Bible if she called that number. And she called that number, and that number brought missionaries. And then my parents were being seen like by the missionaries for like a year, and then they finally decided to join.
Do you remember the missionaries coming over and all that, or are you too young?
I was way too young.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I
So,
do remember their baptism.
oh, you do? So
Yeah.
it was about a year after they were baptized.
Yeah. So I was probably 2.5 when they were first getting those missionary lessons.
Mhm.
And all I can remember was that my parents were baptized in a baptismal font that was in the hallway, not like your typical room setting.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Do you ever talk to your parents about like what it was about the church that made them want to convert?
Um, well, the weird thing is that so my mom like wanted the Bible, and
Mhm.
then she just told my dad like it's up to you if you want to join. And I never knew that because it always just seemed like my dad was the more passive person in
Uh-huh.
the relationship. But eventually, yeah. But what's really interesting is we didn't have that whole like typical Mormon experience growing up. Like my parents, after they joined the church, eventually like they moved to California like not too long after. And this was before technology. And so nobody ever noticed that my dad never got the Melchizedek priesthood until I was like 17 years old.
Uh-huh. You
So
guys went undercover there
yeah,
for a little bit.
like I said, he's super passive.
So you still I guess celebrate and practice some of the Jewish traditions, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah. So what which ones?
Well, all the major ones.
What are the
There's
major
some-
ones?
Okay, so the major holidays to me are Yom Kippur, which is the Day of Atonement. It's a 25-hour fast that um Jewish people like 13 and older, like if they had a bar mitzvah, they do the full day fast. And it's basically the whole year's worth of like things you did wrong or sins are all forgiven on that day, and you're supposed to like apologize to people that you might have
Yeah.
hurt. Yeah, that's the number one.
Uh-huh.
The number two is actually right now it's Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year.
Uh-huh.
It's just kind of a celebration. Usually you eat apples with honey during that. And then the third most important is Passover. And for 8 days, we don't eat unleavened bread. So, like, we don't have cookies, we don't have normal pizza, we don't have sandwiches, we don't have bagels, unless it's like specifically like with a matzah cracker or specifically said kosher for Passover on the item. So yeah, that one's really hard. Um, so that's the third biggest holiday. And then like Hanukkah is another holiday that we celebrate. So we light the candle for 8 nights. Do you know the story of Hanukkah?
I do not. Tell me.
Oh, okay. The story of Hanukkah basically, okay. Let me give you like the gist of almost every Jewish holiday, actually.
Okay.
They tried to kill us. We survived. Let's eat.
Okay.
And so there was basically like a battle. People were trying like I think it was Romans or Greeks, one of them. They were trying to get the Jews to like believe in their gods and like that sort of thing, like polytheism, and they weren't about it. And so there was this battle, and there wasn't enough oil in the lamp. And so it was like supposed to like, yeah, it was only really supposed to last one night, but it lasted 8. And so
Okay.
the really rich members of Jewish society get a present each day, but that's not true of everybody.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's a myth.
Yeah. Unless you're rich.
And then what about your how you eat? I can't
Okay.
remember what it's called.
Yeah, so I like to eat, and I was raised to eat kosher style. So
Mhm.
there's very different levels of kosher. So there's like the legitimately kosher definition where basically all the pots and pans and plates and knives that were used for meat, they can't ever be used for dairy.
Mhm.
They are just strictly for meat. And there's also ones that are just strictly for dairy. And you can never mix dairy and meat in the same meal. If you have meat first, you have to wait 6 hours to have dairy. If you have dairy first, you have to wait 1 hour to have meat. So that's like the legitimate kosher definition for ultra Orthodox Jews,
Uh-huh.
and probably modern Orthodox Jews too also follow that. Um, I I never celebrated. I never did that. Um, but I was raised with the whole 1 hour between the two
Uh-huh.
in the beginning.
In
Or
the
I was always raised that way.
uh-huh.
Um, and then I eventually like wanted ice cream sometimes in the same meal. So yeah. So I kind of broke that, and it was really hard on my digestive system actually to like, because I went like what, like 14 years eating one way and then like tried to break it when I was in high
Uh-huh.
school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so what are some of the biggest differences you think between religions, being Mormon and then knowing Judaism? Is that right?
Hmm. Well, I think one of the bigger things is drinking. Um, with Judaism, basically almost every holiday involves at least like a little cup of wine.
Hmm.
Um, but with being a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, wine is not a thing. So basically the same things that you do with wine, you do with water. So that's a major thing. Um, what else? Well, the Sabbath is on different days. For the LDS Church and most Christian sects, Sunday is the day of rest, and Sunday is the day you go to church. Whereas in Judaism, or at least the Reform synagogue that I grew up in, Saturday and Friday night to Saturday night were the Sabbath. And you went to religious school on Sundays, but you technically, it was weird. Like, you only went to the synagogue on Saturdays if you were invited to somebody's bar bat mitzvah, but
Hmm.
that's just true of like Reformed synagogues. I know when I went to undergrad at UC Santa Cruz, I was like really involved with the Jewish community there, and I would spend a lot of time with the ultra Orthodox Jews,
Hmm.
and there would be like some studying the scriptures like on Saturdays.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Do you still go to the synagogue in Utah for occasions?
So I've gone a few times, but I could probably count on one hand how many times I've been just because I don't live super close. The Jewish community is actually in Salt Lake City.
Mhm.
And well, I live in Utah County and we recently moved even more south. So it's getting a little far. But
Yeah.
I've gone to Purim services or events, and I've gone to Sukkot, and I've gone to Rosh Hashanah, and yeah. So, do you know which story the Purim holiday is all about?
No, never even
Oh.
heard of it.
So it's from the Book of Esther. Maybe that might remind you.
Oh, no.
Okay. So basically,
Oh, no, wait, let me guess.
yes,
She sacrificed herself because of something, and then the king let them all go.
something like that. Yeah. That's a very brief version of that story.
Uh-huh.
It's basically that story. It's my favorite holiday because it's basically Jewish Halloween, but not doesn't have the same connotations. So basically in springtime every year, there's this holiday called Purim, and it commemorates um this Jewish woman. She basically did like she entered a pageant like to become the wife of the king because
Mhm.
he didn't have his other wife anymore. I won't get into that story. But yeah, and she ended up winning, but she never told him that she was Jewish. And like this was in Persia, so modern day Iran. And so her cousin found out that the henchmen basically like well, the henchman got mad at her cousin for not bowing down to him because he thought he was some hot stuff. But the cousin was like, I only bow down to God and you're not God. So basically, yeah. And so the cousin went to Esther and was like, uh, you need to say something like the king and his henchmen are about to kill our people and it's a problem and you're like the only person that like stands a chance in this situation. And she knew like the dire circumstances that nobody just like came into the king's like while he was on his throne or whatever, nobody just came over just to talk to him. You had to set an appointment. So it was like this big thing, like it'd be dangerous for her. And so she ended up meeting with him and kind of had like a tea party situation with him and the henchman, and told the king that the henchman was like trying to kill her people, and then told him that she was Jewish. And so um the henchman actually had these gallows ready for to hang her cousin, and
Mhm.
he also didn't know that that was her cousin, and so he ended up being hung by his own gallows that he created for the cousin. And so we celebrate that we survived, and we eat and we dress up. um for those who drink, you're technically supposed to get so drunk that you can't tell the difference between the cousin and the henchman. But
Okay.
I don't celebrate that way. I just like to dress up.
Sounds like a fun way to celebrate, though,
Yeah, and there's always a carnival too and a play
in the
usually.
play.
Yeah.
Very nice. So, how is your involvement in the Utah Jewish community?
Well, I've been to both the ultra Orthodox. Um, I've been to both ultra Orthodox events and I've been to Reformed events. And so, like, it could be a lot better, but it's just we live so far away, it's kind of a
Mhm.
hassle.
Mhm.
But me and my husband actually, we just went to this place called, I think it's called Curry Pizza in like Salt Lake area. And we met these two people that are basically Hispanic Jewish converts from the church. So they converted the other way around.
That's funny.
Yeah. So and they like hold some events here and there, like, and they live in Pleasant Grove, so not too far from where we live. So
Oh,
we're
that's really
excited
fun.
to spend time with them. Yeah.
What are the chances, right?
Yeah.
Um, so what is your relationship with your extended family? Because your extended family is still mostly Jewish?
They all are.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All of them?
Yeah. So my family basically, like for those that are familiar like with biblical stuff, my dad's side goes all the way down through like Levi's line in the 12 tribes. And I believe my mom's dad's side does too. So it's been like a very strong like Jewish um lineage since
Uh-huh.
ever. And yeah, so my dad was like raised modern Orthodox. And so like he was the one that had like these, he's the one who influenced my mom to like have this kosher style life and stuff. And so, but like of the close immediate family, we're actually, me and my parents are the only ones that actually follow it. Everybody else like eats pork and like cheeseburgers and stuff. So that's pretty interesting. But I would say that they're more religious, um, Jewish or more Jewish religious than we were because I
Mhm.
was raised as both. Um, yeah, my cousin had his bar mitzvah at a modern Orthodox synagogue, and so the men were on one side and the women were on the other. And I think my my uncle is my dad's brother. His
Wait,
wife's
wait,
bar.
wait. Your uncle is your dad's brother?
Very
Sorry.
funny.
Sorry,
So
keep
yeah.
going.
So the uncle, yeah, so I'm related to this uncle, and so his wife, her grandfather was the rabbi that basically um was involved in my cousin's bar mitzvah. So like there's some rabbis there, and then like my cousin, my female cousin, I was just talking about my male cousin. My female cousin, she married into a family that has some ultra Orthodox roots. So there's that. And then I believe my other uncle and his wife are like more like reformed. Although I think my uncle's like actually atheist, but whatever.
Mhm.
But he's like still like he's still like Jewish and stuff, and like it's weird with Judaism. It's like you can have all sorts of beliefs, but because it's like a lineage, you're still Jewish.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Because your children will be Jewish because you're Jewish.
right.
But if it was the opposite, they technically wouldn't be Jewish.
They wouldn't be recognized as Jews from the Orthodox community.
Mhm.
And so like they would, if they wanted to live like their lives fully as Jews or whatever, they would have to convert.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. If it was the other way around.
Uh-huh. Do you
Yeah.
what's the reasoning for that? Do you know?
Yeah. So I took this class called Sinai Scholars when I was an undergrad. So it was a class by the ultra Orthodox rabbi in Santa Cruz.
Mhm.
And basically the reason behind that is a baby is like basically the first 9 months or whatever, they're living in the mom, and the mom is basically in a Jewish environment. And so it's just been like they were raised in a Jewish environment, they were living a certain way, and then they like come out and they're still like Jewish, but also like you always knew like based on the mom, you always knew who the mom was because that baby literally just came out of the mom, so you know her background. But you sometimes in those stories that there's a lot of crazy things going on, like maybe some people were like raped or having affairs or
Uh-huh.
whatever.
Okay.
You didn't always know who the dad was.
We can't trust men.
um that's another reasoning, but I think the first one is like a more legit.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So uh there's bat mitzvah and bar mitzvah.
Hmm.
Did you what the which one's the girl one?
Bot.
Bat?
Hmm.
Did you have bat mitzvah?
Yes, I did when I was 13 years old.
Do
Yeah.
you always have them when you're 13, or does it depend?
So technically girls can have them when they're 12. It's just I was the youngest in my grade at my synagogue because my birthday is in late September and I started school when I was like 4.5. So everything was like, yeah, weird
Uh-huh.
in California. So there was a girl who actually had her bat mitzvah on my birthday, and I was so jealous. Yeah, so the anniversary of my bat mitzvah was October 13th, 2007. It's coming up. Yeah.
Do you
Um,
do a yearly celebration of
no, I just acknowledged that it happened on that day. And it's so funny because the day after is my husband's birthday, and I didn't know him back then.
that?
But yeah, so yeah.
Sorry, you went to a Jewish like elementary school?
No, no.
Oh.
So I went to public school for most of my life,
Uh-huh.
and but I went to a reformed synagogue, and so like I would switch off on Sundays, like which week am I gonna go to church, which week am I gonna go to the synagogue, or if depending on like, how they always change the times at church, it's
Mhm.
like, oh, maybe I get to go to both. Just
Right.
depends
Okay.
on like the year. And then on Wednesdays, I went to Hebrew school,
Okay.
which was at the synagogue. It had nothing to do with my public education.
Okay. So when
Yeah.
you did that on Wednesdays,
Yeah.
was that for language?
Yeah. Yeah. So
Okay.
Sundays were more about like the religious stuff. Wednesdays were learning Hebrew, learning the prayers, um, that sort of thing. Because basically, at least in Reformed Judaism, like women can read from the Torah in Hebrew and chant from it. And like there's all these prayers that like you have to do in a bar or bat mitzvah. So I had to learn them. And it's not like you just read them, it's like chanting, which is basically singing. So yeah,
Okay.
and each word has its own chant.
Okay.
Yeah. There's yeah. I'm not a scholar, but and I can't really get into that, but that's just yeah.
Okay. So, you don't have any kids, but when you have kids, are you gonna have them have bar mitzvahs or bat mitzvahs?
So, if we have boys, they will probably have a bar mitzvah.
Mhm.
If we have girls, we've decided that they get to choose between having a bat mitzvah or a quinceañera. For those of you that don't know me, my husband is Mexican, so quinceañeras are a thing in his culture for the females when they're 15.
Okay.
Yeah.
How fun would that be to choose which one you want? Why not give her both? Let her have
It's
both.
expensive.
Just combine them. That would be really cool.
But 13 and 15, or like basically it's
Oh, is it
12.
different ages?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's
Just do it in the middle.
that's so awkward.
Um, okay, so is there anything else you would like to cover, have any insights on? Because I think you answered all my questions.
Um,
Oh no, I have one now. Okay.
yeah.
Um, since being in Utah, have you had any racism or discrimination at all?
So more like ignorance, I would say.
Okay.
Um, so I was a young women's leader this past year, and when I was at girls' camp, the president of a different ward, the leader president, not the kid president, um, she made like pulled pork sandwiches for like lunch or something, and like she was all talking about how like she made them and stuff, and then like she saw that like I didn't grab any, she's like, you do you or whatever, and I was just like, oh my
Okay.
gosh, that is so rude. Like she didn't even like try to ask to see if like what if I'm allergic to pork, or like maybe I have like a dietary thing, like there's a
Uh-huh.
bigger story behind it, like
Yeah.
I would probably ask somebody that because I'm very curious,
Yeah.
curious, nosy, whatever you call it. And so I just thought it was kind of rude that she didn't even try to ask and engage about that, that it was more like, oh, like my food's not good enough for you,
Yeah.
sort of thing. And it's like, no, that's not the story, lady. Uh, and then I had this other experience. This one I know was definitely unintentional. And I love this person very much. Um, so when basically I was like in a lesson at church, um, I don't remember when this was. Delilah, stop. Hey, sorry. My dog was like being noisy. Anyways, so we were going over I believe we were going over like, how God created the world and stuff. And I was explaining that the seventh day was actually Saturday. And like, and Jews celebrate it that way because that was the day that, um, that was the day God rested when he created the world. And basically, like Christians have kind of like moved it over to Sunday because of Jesus's resurrection.
Mhm.
So but like somebody that I was in a lesson with was like, oh, that's like one interpretation. And I was kind of annoyed when she said that
Mhm.
because it's not interpretation, it's actually the truth because Judaism is like one of the oldest religions.
Uh-huh.
So I was a little annoyed by that, but I love this person and whatever. So like I've had experiences like that. Like, luckily, I haven't, at least in Utah, I haven't had like too many experiences because I kind of stayed to myself for the most part, and I'm friends with really open and loving people. But like back when I was in high school, there was this kid that thought it was funny that whenever he saw me, he would do the Hitler salute. So I had that.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Which isn't funny.
yeah, it's not really funny. And then there like when I was in undergrad, there was a lot of animosity between two political groups on campus
Mhm.
and basically having to do with like the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And so I I was really good friends with leaders in like on the Jewish side of things. And um but like the people that were more on the Palestine side of things, they would like come into our meetings to disrupt them and like picket inside, not like outside the meeting. And it
Mhm.
was a really uncomfortable space
Yeah.
because of that. And then yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we have, oh, I can't see this now.
You have
Okay,
9 minutes and 17 seconds.
9 minutes. Anything else you'd like to talk about or say before we finish this?
Um oh, I guess this is something cool. Um Basically when people convert to Judaism, oh, it's a lot longer. It takes a lot longer to convert to Judaism than it does to the church. Like usually there's like studying for like 2 years under a rabbi. So
Mhm.
like showing like you really are committed to living that religion. But with the church, it's like, oh, you're interested in? Great. You love it. Let's have your baptism as soon as you can have it. So
Yeah.
there's a there's a big difference with that. But in a sense, like Jews who convert, they also have a kind of baptism sort of thing. It's called a mikveh.
Hmm.
It's very similar to a baptismal font. And so that's kind of cool. And like back in the days in the temples, um, like Jews would like bring their like pots and pans and clean them in there. And then it would just kind of be like a cleaning thing, like when women like stopped having their periods. It's like, oh, I'm getting clean again.
Uh-huh.
Like I can be with my husband again, like stuff like
Uh-huh.
that. Yeah.
And so do they like actually like baptize them like all the way underwater like they do in Mormonism, or is it different?
I have to get back to you on that. I really wanted to go to this friend that I had in undergrad who converted. Um, like I assume it was like a full on. thing, but I'm not really sure because I've never seen one. I should ask.
Yeah, find that
Yeah.
out. Okay, well, I think that's good. Thank you for chit-chatting with me.
No problem.
And have a good day.